Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Ultimate Universe 2 Years In, Issue 1 by Dennis Camp, Alex Packnadel, Patrick Boughton, Phil Noto, Francesco Mata, Lee Ferguson and Javier Pulido. The end of the Ultimate Universe is nigh, and since we are 2 years into the universe, we are treated to another special issue that covers quite a bit of story. This time, instead of focusing on Nick Fury and Hand, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy, who since the last time we saw them have gathered a few extra members of their team who are spread throughout time and space, and they are desperately trying everything in their immense power to stop the end of the universe. Star-Lord, along with Gary, wielder of the Infinity Gauntlet, and a Phoenix, try and fuse the Maker's timeline with a dead universe they found, hoping that it will allow the universe to continue on its doomed course while also restoring their reality. The team actually look like they are succeeding as both universes begin to merge, but then it all goes wrong and Gary and the Phoenix are obliterated by the immense cosmic power, with only Star-Lord left alive. Now, I really love this opening and Return of the Guardians. The hints at adventures we never saw. They have some new interesting members and we are saving the universe, but because this is the Maker's world, it's all going to go completely wrong because he's got contingencies in place for everything. It leads to cool things like here we have the Infinity Stones literally snapping out of existence and shattering before everyone around Star-Lord dies. It's a very cool visual. In the aftermath of the failed mission, the remaining Guardians gather together to try and come up with another plan. Even more really interesting Guardians are revealed here, like Kid Korvac, Modos, Herald, and many others. Captain Marvel tells her team that there are still 25,000 Guardians scattered throughout time, and they need to gather them all together if they are to win this war. Herald asks if the plan that got Gary and Phoenix killed was Star-Lord's, since the least he could have done is shown up to their memorial. Captain Marvel tells him that Star-Lord is elsewhere, still trying to help people, but also he went looking for the Madrox, someone Herald knows is very dead, having seen him shatter against the walls of creation like their hope. Oh, I love the idea of Jamie Madrox, who's usually an X-Men character, is now a cosmic being who is talked with quite reverence, like he's a god being or something. They call him the Madrox. That's really cool, and I'm really intrigued to see what they do with him. Captain Marvel knows that the Madrox lives and their motto is to save everything, so that is what they are going to do. Later on, while sleeping, Captain Marvel thinks about how their ship is powered by hope, and that they are starting to run on a short supply of that. In order to power the ship, Marvel thinks about the future that was ripped from them, the future she saw that had heroes taking to the skies, and one that she shared with America Chavez. So I'd forgotten that the Guardian ship is powered by the literal concept of hope, and such an interesting, very Grant Morrison-esque idea, and a great through line for the story. You know, this universe is where lots have changed, but the worst thing that Maker has done has kind of ripped the hope out of this universe. He's kind of taken it out like he thought it was some type of cancer, and it leaves it just to wither and die because it doesn't have that, and the heroes, you know, don't have any hope. And here we have a ship that's, you know, it's grinding to a halt. It's kind of like a physical representation of this universe. Is kind of grinding to a halt, and once it stops, like a shark, it will just die. Captain Marvel remembers how America Chavez chose to stay in the 21st century with the Ultimates, but she gave her a temporal flare to shoot up in case anything happens to her. She hopes that America will use it soon as Cosmo comes by her quarters, telling Marvel that they have finally caught the scent of Ultron 82. The team head to 2 million BC, where they find the advanced Ultron unit sitting on a rock and watching the Celestials cull off the cavemen, knowing with their death, Homo sapiens will soon evolve and humanity will begin. The Ultron 82 character is a really neat addition to the team. She's just an observer, taking in information, cataloging it, and just watching the beauty of the universe play out in front of them. Seeing this sort of stuff really makes me sad this universe is ending. This is all stuff that I would jump at a chance to read more about or see these characters turn up somewhere else. Like, I can imagine, like, at this point, if the universe was continuing, we would have a Guardians book and there'd be issues devoted to Ultron 82 and their mission around the universe. You could have done all these really cool things, but it was just cut short thanks to editorial. Ultron 82 cites that since she arrived there in that timeline, they have seen violence beyond comprehension, making her think that there is no accident here and this is the Maker's doing, and he has deformed space and time to such a degree that it has had a retrocausal impact, and both the past and future have all suffered because of it. Ultron, however, needs more data to ensure that they are correct, meaning that they will not be coming with the Guardians back to the present time, and instead will stay and just catalogue and observe. Captain Marvel asks if they are sure, and Ultron is, since they cannot confront the Maker without knowing what his capabilities are. This is where we get probably my favourite reveal of the issue, and again, as I said, this is something that we would have seen in like small arc in a Guardians book, and that is that Ultron 82 activates her Watcher protocol, meaning that she will eventually become known as Uatu, the Watcher of this universe. That's such a clever and interesting idea, but again, one we'll probably never ever see again. Captain Marvel leaves the android with a temporal beacon just like she did with America, should they want to come back once they have enough information. The team head back into the present to meet Star-Lord, finding him alone and refusing to speak. Instead, he just seals himself in his quarters, with Cosmo thinking that he is just filled with guilt over getting the Guardians killed. Seeing Star-Lord like this affects the ship's hope engines even more, with them beginning to whine and moan under pressure, almost like they are pulling a black hole. The Guardians head to 3 million BC to the planet Maud, following Cosmo's nose again, which leads them to another member of the Guardians, the leader of the Novacore, Nova Prime. The Guardians head to the planet's swampy surface and immediately know that something is very off as they find a caveman-like alien wearing Nova gear about to bash the head in of another alien going against the core. I like this idea that the Novacore never really took full flight and instead became this weird caveman cult on a far-off swampy world, never able to get off the planet and become a actual police force. There's also a bit of sort of through line there with what was happening with the mainline Novacore, which kind of has done the exact same thing where they never really get off the ground, or if they do, it's never for long since they're always obliterated in some big Marvel cosmic event, or they are used early on in an event and, killed off just to set the stakes in a story. Hell, only recently in Earth 616 does it look like the Novacore are starting to sort of come back thanks to Richard Rider getting his own book and trying to maybe sort of bring them back in some way in the wake of Imperial. The Guardians demand the caveman stand down, but as he tries to run, Cosmo is forced to invade his mind, wanting him to tell them where their friend Churn, the Nova Prime, is. The being doesn't know who Churn is, but will happily take them to Nova Prime, whom he knows. I love that this feels very old school Star Trek-y, like a team have their mission and it's not to interfere, it's just to observe, kind of like the Prime Directive of Starfleet, but they always are finding themselves in situations where they have to get in and help out and get involved, and even the entire setup here with the Novas feels like a Star Trek episode. A long lost Starfleet ship crashes on a world and the natives begin worshipping the crew as gods, and they eventually die off and the crew become sort of their deities. It's a classic sci-fi setup and I love that Dennis Camp has gone there. The alien leads the Guardians towards a giant temple, and as they pass more slaves and dead aliens, Captain Marvel remembers how the Novacore were once the inspiration for the Guardians, where even their Save Everything motto came from an engraving on a statue of Queen Andorra on Xandar. Captain Marvel begins to believe that Churn maybe has strayed from the light of Xandar as they enter the temple, finding guards blocking their way. A voice, however, ushers them through and they find one of the green-skinned aliens wearing a Nova Prime suit and helmet, claiming himself to be Nova Prime. The being says that the Bright Mind told him that they would one day come, and now that they are all ready to become Guardians of the Galaxy. Ultimate Nullifier is angered, citing how the uniform the alien is wearing belonged to a friend of his, and he wants to know where he is. He demands the alien take off the uniform as the alien doesn't know who Churn is. However, it's possible he thinks it's the painted skull, as he realizes he must be talking about the Bright Mind. While I could see where this story was going from here from the get-go, I really like it. I like the idea that the Nova's teachings have become so completely warped and twisted into something that doesn't represent hope or unity anymore. It's just how the Ultimate Universe works. Now, we don't actually see what happens to the alien or their, leader, but the Ultimate Nullifier is seen later on the ship with the Novacore helmet, so I think it's safe to say they relieved the alien of the helmet and the uniform and probably killed him. Learning that Nova Prime is dead, though, causes them to lose even more hope, and the engines of the ship strain even more, with the engine stalls happening more frequently now. Nullifier knows that there will soon be nothing more than flotsam in the time stream, him. Upset, his old friend Nova Prime is gone, but Captain Marvel won't let them stop. They are going to save everything. Nullifier isn't too interested in Marvel's words, wanting to continue his research into the negative zone and chrono mechanics, hoping to find a way to stop the Maker's universe from trudging on. Captain Marvel leaves Nullifier to his work, but not before telling him that him and the team mean everything to her, and they have saved her every single day they have been together, and it keeps her moving forward. Marvel goes to see Cosmo, who hasn't picked up on anything yet, but after the captain leaves, they secretly use their telepathy to talk to Star-Lord, knowing that he can hear the psychic dog and that he feels responsible for Gary and the Phoenix's death, but it was not his fault. Star-Lord, however, is literally on fire, his skin turning to a green hue as he slowly burns up from within in his quarters. Cosmo implores the hero to join them again since they cannot do this without him. I'm liking how Camp and Packnadil are really setting up the hopelessness of the Guardians situation and how it feels the literal universe is shifting to ensure hopelessness continues to exist, and that's probably what's actually happening thanks to the Maker toying with it. He's probably embedded something in this universe to stop hopelessness ever taking form. As the Guardians' hope dwindles, another hero across the cosmos searches through history for things to save, gathering the Zen Levian Lotus, a scene that depicts the forbidden love between a Skrull and a Kree soldier, and the planet Fandia, a planet full of artists who all must be saved. The being saves them in a tesseract as it's revealed to be Daredevil, who a few centuries before Christ was born is trying to save what he can from destruction. The reveal that Daredevil in this universe is not Matt Murdock or a street level hero, but a cosmic god older than the universe, a Beyonder, who is trying to help save what he can from death and, store it in this cube for safekeeping, is just the creative swing I love the Ultimate Universe for. Dennis Camp and a couple of the other writers have done a bunch of these really different and creative things with this universe, and that's what's really worked for me about it, that it's just so wildly different than what we usually get with some of these heroes, and Daredevil here is just, the poster child for that. It's just completely different, and I am really intrigued by it. I like the idea of this. The Guardians soon find Daredevil, whom they know used to be one of their members, but Daredevil cannot remember him thanks to the Ivory Kings, who tried to destroy their universe before, but Daredevil risked everything to save it, severely wounding himself in the process, so that now his somatic senses have been reduced from 7 million just to 13. Camp Packnadil and artist Javier Pulido really make a meal out of the new godlike Daredevil, going some insanely creative things with the paneling since Daredevil goes on the defensive as the Guardians try and catch up with him, and he literally uses the pages and the paneling to stop them, drawing his own panel breaks and lines to trap Captain Marvel or to swing off into another panel down further in the page. I adore creative paneling as it often feels like artists won't or can't do it for a myriad of reasons, which usually come down to time constraints, but when an artist is left to cook, you'll often see something really awesome like this. Another example is obviously Absolute Wonder Woman and Hayden Sherman's work on that book. That book's paneling is just immaculate, and I love every minute of it. Daredevil easily gets the better of the Guardians, and during his fight, Captain Marvel believes that Daredevil has lost all hope, and the thought of another cosmic disaster has reverted him to a childlike state, something Marvel knows is pretty characteristic of his cosmic race, the Beyonders. Daredevil actually can see Marvel's inner monologue, not liking her criticism of him, so he unleashes his reader senses, which allow him to actually view the script for this very comic and actually lets him re-edit the writing and make it so that the Guardians actually want to get into the Tesseract and stay safe. Captain Marvel is able to snap out of the re-edits as the rest of the team are sucked into the Hypercube, knowing that she didn't think any of what was just happening. Daredevil gets very, very meta here as he reveals that there are unseen beings looking down on them with unyielding demands, which is kind of a nod to the fans who just demand anything and everything from these books, and if it doesn't meet their, wildly high expectations, they just get mad and throw their weight around. It also is likely a jab at the editorial, who demanded this universe come to an end for some goddamn reason. I have no idea why. I know the books have been doing quite well. Everyone seems to be really enjoying them. I have no idea why they would want to end it. Daredevil says that the cube is their last hope to keep narrative integrity intact by making change impossible, and they'll all be safe inside of it. Captain Marvel does not believe that, citing how it's a prison, not salvation. Captain Marvel manages to grab the cube from Daredevil, opening it and watching as the stars, planets, and history he collected pour back into the universe and to the timeline. Heading back to their ship with Daredevil, they find the ship is dead in the water with no hope powering it, meaning they cannot fulfill their mission. Star-Lord soon awakens, knowing that they aren't without hope just yet, as Captain Marvel spots Nullifier outside the ship, finding that he figured out the abstract chronomechanics. Marvel realizes that he was trying to understand the Maker's changes to the timeline because thanks to how Nullifier's powers work, anything he understands, he can then nullify. Nullifier says that they tried to save the universe but they cannot separate the timeline from the Makers, meaning that it's always them or the others, and he chooses the Guardians to live. Marvel wants to try and work out a solution since centillions of lives will be wiped out if they go through with this, but Nullifier knows that the timeline is sick and poison. It's a rabid animal, and the only thing to do to a rabid animal is to euthanize it. Using Ultimate Nullifier's powers in such a way is a brilliant idea, the way how he can understand something and then nullify it because he understands it, but then it goes a step further and we find out that it's just not that simple on a universal scale, and the easiest solution is to just kill the universe, because even if he was able to nullify some of it, it would just create more problems. I really like it because it wasn't that aha moment here, the solution just wasn't presented. It continues this great through line of hope being utterly poisoned in this world right down to a baser level, and any plan to try and bring it back is just a disaster. Captain Marvel gets ready to shoot Nullifier if he goes through with this plan, not wanting to kill her friend, but Nullifier grabs her hand, wanting her to look him in the eye and tell him the timeline does not deserve to be put out of its misery. Marvel can't give a reason why it shouldn't die, and Nullifier breaks down crying, telling Captain Marvel he just misses his friends so much. The duo's moment is interrupted by a shrill alarm sound as the temporal beacon alarm goes off, making Captain Marvel think that America Chavez has made contact. The team head to the year 4362 AD, where the Celestials again are attacking the human population. Cosmo cites how everything is now collapsing down into a single stagnant singularity. Captain Marvel says that all life on Earth has been converted into genetically identical beings known as the Tomorrow People, erasing any and all diversity from the universe. She knows that the Maker saved Earth till last, and they must find America Chavez now. Ultron 82, now clad in her Watcher robes, appears, revealing that she was the one who sent the distress beacon, not America. Uatu is glad to see her friends again as she kills one of the Tomorrow People who run at them, citing how even after just being born, they are intrinsically violent towards anything different. Captain Marvel throws up an invisible shield around the group so they won't get spotted again, as Uatu reveals that she has learned all she can and wanted to share her findings. I love the idea of the Ultron bot becoming Uatu in this world and just being used in a way for the heroes to have an exposition dump. She's, gathering the lore, and it's an interesting way to use a character who just watches, but also stays true to the Guardians' mission statement, which, as I said before, is very Star Trek Prime Directive coded. They're just there to observe and figure out a plan. Uatu reveals that after observing 80 cycles of civilizational expansion and collapses, she found the Maker had no retrocausal effect at all, shocking the Guardians. Cosmo cites how the misery and barbarism was there, but Uatu reveals that it's all natural and a part of their history. Uatu says that they are telling them this since they want Captain Marvel to free themselves from Utopia's shadow and learn that nothing lasts forever, not even the paradise Marvel wanted, and if she restores their future, she can be sure it will fall to ruin once more, be it the Maker, be it Thanos, be it anything. Captain Marvel believes this was now all for nothing, but Uatu gives her a note from America Chavez, which proposes a change to the Guardians' motto, making it "Save what you can." I was waiting for this other shoe to drop for Captain Marvel, where she realizes that she can't do everything and anything and will have to settle for what they can do within their power. That's the core ideal for pretty much all heroes, especially Marvel heroes. Do what you can to help out the people. With a new mission in mind, the team head back to the ship, where Star-Lord stumbles out of his quarters, telling the team that it's time to show them. The hero begins vomiting up a black liquid, making the team believe that he has been sick this entire time, but Star-Lord knows that he's not sick, wanting them to watch as the bile he threw up begins to move, growing in mass as it's revealed to be a miniature colony of the Madrox, who, while their hive mind numbers were low, took up residence in Star-Lord's body, using his body's resources to duplicate until it was enough for the Madrox to be reborn, and Star-Lord only lived because of the being he was, as any normal human host would die immediately. The hero can't really remember what happened to himself, but knows he can replicate over and over again after a traumatic event. Star-Lord knows that there will be a time for remembering, but today they live and together they have tomorrow. The Madrox returning to life and giving the team just that little bit of hope, enough to power the ship, is a great idea, and I also love the changes to Madrox as a whole. Making him an actual alien entity hive mind was a great idea, since, let's be honest, Jamie Madrox is kind of a boring mutant. Gathering the team, Captain Marvel is told by Cosmo that Siderax is hurtling unstoppably through the 30th century at 5 times the speed of light and needs their help. Captain Marvel sets course for the 30th century, knowing their future is forever gone, but they aren't the first to experience that, and while this isn't their skies or stars, they fight for them all the same, since they are the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they will save what they can. This is the best possible ending as I could have hoped for part of the Ultimate Universe. It doesn't end without hope or a dire spot, but with a spark of hope for the heroes, giving them just the push to keep going. It also ends with a classic Never the End final text panel, which has been done countless times across Marvel and DC, and every time I see it I get hyped, because it's true, the books will end, they'll get cancelled, they'll be left unfinished, but that's never the end. The adventure continues on somewhere in some other book in some other time, and that's just awesome. Ultimate Universe 2 years in, issue 1 was a wonderful look at the Guardians of the Galaxy and their race to save the Ultimate Universe from its fate. It's a little bittersweet knowing that these characters that I really want to know more about, I want to see more about, we probably won't, and I find it criminal we never got a Guardians book, or even if it was a short-lived book, a special or something that explored their adventures. This is going to be one of the last times we see these great characters, and I'm very saddened by that fact, but you can't deny that they went out with a bang, instilling a great message of hope and perseverance and telling us the story never ends. I am going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.